Hello children, today's story is Hansel and Gretel. Let's begin. Once upon a time there were two children called Hansel and Gretel. They lived with their father and stepmother in a small cottage near a forest. Their father was a poor woodcutter. Their stepmother was very unkind to them. One day the stepmother told the woodcutter, "The food in the home is not enough for all of us. You must leave your children in the forest tomorrow." "I can't do that," cried the woodcutter, but his wife somehow persuaded him. Hansel and Gretel overheard this conversation. At night, Hansel went out quietly and filled his pockets with white pebbles. In the morning, the children's stepmother woke them up. "Get up, Hansel! Get up, Gretel! Go with your father to the forest and fetch some wood." Hansel and Gretel followed their father into the forest. After every few steps, Hansel dropped a pebble on the ground. When they were deep inside the forest, their father, the woodcutter, said, "Children, rest here. I'll be back soon." Night fell, but the woodcutter did not return. Gretel began to cry. "Don't worry, we will find our way back home," said Hansel. The tiny white pebbles dropped by Hansel gleamed in the moonlight. The children followed the pebbles and reached home. Their stepmother was not happy to see them back home. She gave them some dry bread to eat. That night she locked the door so that Hansel could not go out to collect pebbles. The next morning the woodcutter once again led Hansel and Gretel away into the forest. After every few steps, Hansel dropped a small piece of bread on the ground. Once again the woodcutter left them and went away. When night fell, Hansel and Gretel tried to follow the trail of breadcrumbs to reach home. But alas, the birds had eaten them. The two frightened children wandered even deeper into the forest. They walked and walked. Suddenly they came upon a strange cottage. Hansel exclaimed, "Wow, a candy house! It's made of chocolate, cakes, biscuits, and toffees." The children were very hungry. Immediately they started eating. Suddenly they heard a voice. "Who's nibbling at my house?" Hansel and Gretel looked up. There stood an ugly old witch wearing a green conical hat in front of them. The witch rubbed her hands in glee and said, "Yum, yum, I shall eat you both, but let me fatten you up a bit first." She locked Hansel in a cage and made Gretel do all the housework. A few days later, the witch told Gretel, "I'm going to eat your brother today. Go and check if the oven is hot enough." Gretel replied, "I don't know how to check it." The witch screamed at her, "Useless girl, I will do it myself." As the witch bent down to look inside the oven to check the heat, Gretel pushed her with all her might. "In you go," shouted Gretel and shut the door. She freed Hansel. They found a sack full of gold coins in one corner of the cottage. Hansel picked it up and they ran away from there. Hansel and Gretel found their way back home. Their father was very happy to see them. "Oh, children, I really missed you. Your stepmother is gone," he said with tears in his eyes. Hansel gave him the bag of gold coin and said, "Father, you will never have to chop wood again." They lived happily ever after. Thank you, children. Good night.